I have to start off this analysis by saying we both have such similar placements. We're both Scorpio rising, angelic Cancerian princesses, and our synastry is to die for. So Lana is certainly up there in my dream client list, and I'm looking forward to the day when the stars align and I get to become her personal astrologer. But until then, Scorpio risings have a funny little narrative in their chart where they navigate the world through this incredibly private, guarded, intense perspective, yet the height of their chart reflects somebody with star power, the desire for adoration, and an undeniable ability to gain the public's attention. The discomfort of a Scorpio first house and a Leo 10th house is that in order to get that well-deserved standing ovation, you kind of have to be willing to stand on the stage, and the combination of her big three being a Scorpio rising, Cancer sun, and Leo moon is emotionally, creatively, and intuitively fucking lethal. This is somebody who wants to live in the skin of their romantic victims, and upon doing some research, I actually found out that she dove headfirst into falling in love with a Sagittarius who married another woman while they were in couples therapy together, and her long history of public romantic misfortune is very on par for a famous damsel in distress navigating love on the world stage. On top of that, Lana has a doubled down Plutonian personality, which has a tendency to find itself isolated, scapegoated, and projected onto, thus accidentally becoming public enemy number one whenever she attempts to speak her truth due to misinterpretation, hidden struggle, and the chameleon-like ability to contort and transform into somebody entirely different, which is a challenge for any woman in the public eye. So by default, there's this polarizing intensity that can trigger anybody that quote-unquote experiences Lana, whether that be from afar or up close and personal. Her Scorpio ascendant determines that she is ruled by her 9th house Cancer Mars, which is already an uncomfortable place for Mars to be, so you're putting a really fiery planet and muddling it down into a very watery sign. So it's in a challenging aspect to both her Mercury and her 3rd house Neptune, both of which really struggle to communicate directly and effectively without being susceptible to emotional turbulence.
No, yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, you know, thank you, Lana.
I think her 2020 album release Controversy is a perfect example of how her questions for the culture open letter gave her a very much right idea, wrong execution sort of vibe, and how the point and approach to such an open-ended, like, epitome of the 3rd house, 9th house axis topic can so easily get lost in translation despite it possibly being a planned publicity stunt.
Yeah, I'm gonna compare myself to strong black queens. Oh!
It's like somebody who struggles in an argument because they cry when they're angry, or beating around the bush until what's bottled up explodes. However, the one thing I can say about this placement is that it's somebody who's passionate and defensive about their beliefs, and somebody who will absolutely go to war for their loved ones, oftentimes going harder for others than they do for themselves, and that opposition reflects somebody who struggles with kind of having one foot in and one foot out of the fight, feeling passion but struggling to execute, or wanting to change and not really knowing where to start, etc. Having this so close to her sun brings an alluring, sexy, aggressive, kind of rough around the edges type of flair to her. And Cancer women often get limited to personifying the stereotypical, nuclear family 50s housewife. We never really hear much about, an elaborative description beyond being super sensitive, emotional, domesticated, the friend who's always crying, etc. And I almost could not disagree more. There's certainly mommy energy with the Cancers. However, it's formulated with sugar, spice, and a few drops of ringleader elixir, because there's this incredibly overlooked aspect of Cancer having, yes, that water influence of really melting in emotional situations, but the forgotten cardinal and Jupiterian aspect of initiating, controlling the reins, craving more, and really alchemizing whatever is right in front of them. Now, her sun is in a conflicting aspect to Neptune, and this is one of those things where the more I try to explain to you what this reveals to us about her, the more her mystical essence really slips between our fingers due to its lucid nature. Neptune is fantasy, it's illusion, it's a dream realm, it's, to put it quite simply, a performance of something that's not entirely real. So in the natal chart, this reflects a vast spectrum of real-world results, from somebody who is a natural-born creative on the world stage to somebody who can quite literally lose themselves in the delusion of the story that they've created for themselves. Her psychological standing, emotional clarity, and general communication can get blurred between the lines, really creating conflict between balancing fact and fiction, logic and emotions, objective truth and faithful belief. But this can be somebody who has an incredible creative advantage, as it's somebody who can really bend and contort a black and white experience into a heart-wrenching, profound piece of artwork. However, it becomes a little bit more conflicting in the personal life, as it can display a lot of confusion, manipulation, and disorientation to really deciphering what is real versus what is a romanticized illusion. It really lacks the ability to be grounded and rather prefers kind of floating in the clouds. Somebody who is an artist at heart, though, might even argue that there isn't a difference between the two, or that reality was never real to begin with. It's like when everybody on the outside can see that that guy that you're obsessed with is total garbage, but through your rose-colored glasses, all you can see is the knight in shining armor that you've dreamt up in your subconscious. Do you see how we're already getting lost here? So let's talk about her Leo moon. At heart, this is somebody who craves attention and adoration, not really from a place of malice, for example, embarrassing somebody else to make yourself look better, but rather the innocent craving to be celebrated in the way that every child needs. The opposition to Jupiter and square to her Pluto doubles down on the ability to tap into her emotions, intuition, and creative ability to a very profound degree. However, from the outside, it can look inflamed, prone to drama, or blowing things out of proportion, and again, ultimately making her the drama. Like, this is somebody who can be haunted by their own emotional intensity with themselves, that it's like, oh, you think I'm hard to deal with? Imagine living in my own head or heart type of thing. A lot of this action is happening between the areas of her chart that involve her career, reputation, and being in the public eye in relation to her actual thinking processes and emotional processing that are derived from her early childhood developmental years. Similarly to her Sun-Neptune opposition, her Leo moon opposes Neptune, so we're seeing a Piscean influence on both of her luminaries, emphasizing this hazy, otherworldly, dream state type of vibe to her entire persona. This really symbolizes how strong her brand recognition has become over time, so much so that this simple image of a Coke can, a cigarette, or a white lace has been coined as Americana, Trailer Park Princess, Lana, Coquette Core, despite being able to contextually assume that she grew up as a wealthy New York City native. However, to my knowledge, she later went no contact with her parents, which furthers the Neptunian smoke and mirrors of who she really is and where she really came from. Many of her OG fans know that before she was Lana Del Rey, she was Lizzie Grant. And Lana Del Rey is a very controversial, carefully curated persona that has been woven so tightly into who she is that there's very minimal separation between the general public being able to tell the difference between Lana as a stage name and Lana as a real person with human complexities. Usually this type of cultural impact is built over decades of worldwide success, yet Lana has managed to dig her heels in the sand with such a particular aesthetic that actually similarly shows up in Ariana Grande and Kim Kardashian's chart, two other women who are literally associated with certain colors, items, or style choices. The T-square formed between her moon, Venus, and Jupiter, which I guess is actually a fixed grand cross on her angles if you consider her ascendant, kind of creates this pressure cooker tension between the main four pillars of her life, which is who she is as a person, her home and family or childhood, relationships, romantic, professional, or platonic, and her career and how she's perceived in the public eye. Now, because it's between the benefics, which typically want to gift us pleasurable things rather than problems, this can be a nod to incredible financial standing, being well off in life, enjoying plenty of indulgent or lucky experiences in life. However, at its worst, it can reflect overindulgent behaviors, spending, eating, loving in excess. Think of when you overeat a dessert or get carried away with gambling or overestimate your abilities or really just lean too much into temptation. It can become sickly sweet, and with the South Node conjunct her Saturn in the first house, she may be somebody who runs headfirst into the yummy and delicious temptations of the world due to having to grow up fast, suffering unfortunate circumstances, experiencing a lot of trauma. But what's happening here is she's being encouraged to prioritize a healthy dose of restriction, limitation, and discipline in order to have a supportive internal foundation rather than escaping and seeking attention, validation, and happiness from external people, places, and things. This is very karmic with the nodes and Saturn, so it's not something that can be learned without the help of spiritual teachers via those that she shares the close relationships with. Like, her strongest lessons in life won't be learned through books or advice or therapy, but through the trials and tribulations of partnerships, both good and bad. They're really going to be the vehicle for her destiny, and this personally helps me understand her defense in her music when it comes to people accusing her of romanticizing abusive relationships, because she's illuminating the feelings of the experience for what they are, which, yes, maybe it is wrong to love somebody who has dragged you to hell and back, but that is the whole point. She takes us on the journey with her through the eyes of somebody who has a lot to learn, which is very human, therefore very real, therefore real art. And just because you make art about controversial things doesn't mean that you are romanticizing that controversy. He hit me and it felt like a kiss is a very dangerous thing to put in a song. But if artists can't make music about their real experiences, wouldn't creating something manufactured be less authentic? The North Node in her 7th house emphasizes life purpose and destiny being discovered through the vessel of those closest to her, even if the relationship itself is faded, fleeting, and temporary. Taurus influence begs to bring her back down to earth, and in terms of love, Lana will always be somebody who will do best dating somebody who isn't famous, and if they are in the industry, they're an accountant or a lawyer or a down-to-earth wealthy guy who keeps to himself and can really be a reliable rock for her glitz and glam lifestyle. She needs somebody that she can come home to as Elizabeth Grant rather than the glamorous performance of being Lana Del Rey. She's already conquered looking inward, getting spiritual, operating through her emotions, and in this lifetime she's encouraged to prioritize stability, commitment, and realistic foundations within her partnerships. Less up and down chaos, less tug of war, less addiction to drama. This is, funnily enough, somebody who will find happiness through literally settling down, getting married, married and living a very normal, grounded life.
I would go on a date with a fan. I have gone on a date. I'm very, I don't really have a type.
Other notable details about Lana's chart is that she'll likely find her sense of belonging or feelings of being quote-unquote at home with herself far away from where she was raised, particularly overseas or in a foreign country. I think she'll either have a lot of children or will at least tap into an almost spiritual awakening, a revelation of who she truly is at her core if and when she decides to build her own family. However, I do think she'll seclude herself from the world or detach herself from the public lifestyle before doing so, and it's likely that this will happen later in life for her. Overlooked aspects of Lana may include her being somebody who's persuasive, open-minded, and willing to negotiate, but it may be brushed off as somebody who's airheaded or stubborn due to mistaking passion for aggression and abrasiveness. This immediately makes me think of somebody who gets antagonized to their limit, so they defend themselves and then gets passive-aggressively gaslit into believing that they are being dramatic. It's like, yeah, if you're gonna kick a dog enough times, they're eventually going to bite back.
Did you secretly get engaged to Lana?
No, not me.
No.
You and fuck off.
There may be a push-pull dynamic between her relationships and her own sense of identity, who is Lana on her own versus who she becomes when she's participating in a partnership, and how she struggles to assert herself as an authority while also seeking somebody to lead the way and take care of her, allowing her to be submissive. It's like how we know that those who mother everybody else are the ones who really need the mothering the most. There's a very particular emotional reward and punishment system that is necessary to win someone like this over in the long term, as this is somebody who needs to feel safe but not smothered, led but not controlled, obsessed but not possessed, and have everything laid out on the table but never run out of mystery. This highlights karmic tension, discomfort, or limitations she experiences within that tug of war with others. It's a power struggle, authoritative issue, an extreme spectrum of craving too much control versus losing control entirely. However, there is probably a more esoteric lesson here in regards to power and control dynamics within interpersonal relationships. Like, she needs somebody to keep her on her toes in a way that inspires consistent growth and evolution without mimicking a toxic on and off addiction site. We can attribute her Mercury and her 9th house placements to writing her music. However, I'm wondering down the line if she's going to become an author, go into something that maybe allows her to be a public speaker, go into teaching, education, anything like that as well.
So like, this is about being happy now, right? And I was like, no, it's just about... Obviously not.
If you love this analysis, let me know who else you'd like me to read next, and if you like a personalized private reading for yourself, you can book a pre-recorded reading in my bio. Love you so much, and thanks for watching.